Hello and welcome to Let's H. I'm your host, Pushcho. Scroll down and click on the Read More, explore some of the links in the blurb, and become a patron on Patreon to support quality content. Today I'm back with another episode of Angel Season 5. I'm back with the lucky 13th episode, which unfortunately isn't quite so lucky. It's called Why We Fight, and it follows on the heels of You're Welcome, which, if you have listened to previous episodes, you know is probably my least favorite episode of anything Buffy ever. Why We Fight comes in a three-peat, I guess you could say, or a hat trick, of shitty episodes, following up a bad episode that had potential with a bad episode that has no potential was a really bad idea, especially since the next episode is Smile Time, which is one of the better episodes of the season, plus the episode right after that is A Hole in the World. We're wasting Fred's presence, but that's no big news, and again, if you listen to the previous episodes, you know that she does pretty much fucking nothing in this season. It's no real surprise that the actress was feeling frustrated and feeling like she was spinning her wheels because, lo and behold, she should be frustrated because she was spinning her wheels. This is one of those episodes which really just waste everybody's time. It touches on some after effects of the previous episode, such as Eve disappearing, but there's not much else to recommend it. The episode is god-awful. This is literally one of the worst episodes of the season, and that is even just speaking as it follows You're Welcome. I literally cannot believe that this episode was ever made. I can see at least why You're Welcome got made, because they had the script and by damn they were going to use it for a guest star. However, this episode, good lord, pretty much none of the other cast actually put in hardly any appearance in it. They might as well be guest stars. This is an angel-centric story, which otherwise might have been good at this point of the season, but it wasn't. It's not only an Angel focus in the present story, but it's more intensely a story focusing on Angel in the past, specifically in the 40s. As you might remember, there was an excellent episode early on in the second season called Are You Now or Have You Ever Been? That was how to do a flashback episode right. It not only introduced the Hyperion Hotel, but it also built it up as a location and practically as another character. I may have mentioned before that that's really what Hotel American Horror Story should have been, that episode of Angel in Season 2. That showed everything that you could do right with the setting, whereas American Horror Story tended to show everything you could do wrong with the setting. This, unfortunately, was not something like that. And while I've also said Nazis are always a great enemy, this, unfortunately, doesn't actually do a good job with having Nazi enemies. Like, there are Nazis, and they're there, and they're not good guys, but it also doesn't mean that the Nazis are really the enemy in the story, in more than a just nebulous and vague way, and in general because, well, they were fighting the Nazis in World War II. The thing is, the story is patently stupid, and even if you're not a history buff, the episode itself makes it clear that the American government are not lily white and they're not really the good guys, which makes it difficult to sympathize with this Lawson asshole, who never at any moment is anything but painfully naive and obnoxious. And I don't know if it's because he's being played poorly, or if he's just kind of an obnoxious person. He comes across as a huge douchebag, and it's impossible to really care for him. Also, his grand master plan was to put Angel's friends on wheelie chairs with nooses around their necks. Did he even think about this for a second? Spike's impulsive plans were never that stupid. And speaking of which, Spike features very prominently in the flashback against all odds, and becomes yet another butt of a joke, despite the fact that he shouldn't be yet another butt of a joke at the time, or any time for that matter, but yet he is strangely absent from the action in the present. Possibly because it would make it too easy to resolve, but we don't ultimately care about Sam Lawson, so why wasn't this actually used to develop the relationship between Angel and Spike, who were both there in the past, instead of just one brief scene at the end that Spike was barely in? It even starts out stupidly. You get some of this Demon Research Initiative. Yeah, that's great, because we all loved the fucking initiative when it was on Buffy, and it wasn't at all a terrible idea that was never realized well. Why bring that into Angel? Nobody was asking for it. Nobody even liked it on Buffy, that's why they ditched it pretty fast. It was swept under the rug, and deservedly, because it was a garbage idea that wasn't very well realized. It doesn't make sense to exist. It cheapens everything around it, and ultimately it takes agency away from so many of the characters, which is one of the primary problems of this episode. Angel has absolutely no agency in it whatsoever. He's beaten up and intimidated by these assholes from the Demon Research Initiative so that he can recover a captured U-boat that they're trying to bring back to America, and this will somehow help them win the war. It's so facile. It's so dumb. It could have even worked if they hadn't introduced too many things that make you think, wait, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't really work. And I mean, like I said in the episode Life of the Party, there are some things in the Buffyverse that just you shouldn't think too deeply about. They work, and that's fine, that's enough. This is one of those things that never did work, and part of what really makes it not work is that Angel is a deeply unsympathetic character. During this episode, he's being kind of unsympathetic up to now, but he should be a more sympathetic character in this episode. It really doesn't make any logical sense that he would be a worse character in this episode than he was in the previous episode, if we're to believe that Cordelia got him back on the right track. Why would you ever have an episode that shows how much of a bad person he is and how obnoxious and awful he is, as well as showing how easy it is for these initiative assholes to beat the shit out of him? That doesn't make any sense. Too many unwelcome things, too many unlikely things, and Spike doesn't find his behavior the least bit off or suspicious. Also, funny and convenient how he never listens to any of the other vampires when they have a point or might actually bring up some information that's important. He just takes them casually. Great, guess we didn't need to know that essential information. It gets so frustrating past a point. And, you know, I will say this. This is yet another one of the instances where it makes me really kind of bristle when I hear Buffy fans talk about how pro-gay and progressive the show is. Yeah, they introduce a dude who says he was Rasputin's lover, and this has the potential to be a character that bucks all expectation, because, you know, he's like this burly, bearded dude, very masculine and ho-ho-ho and whatnot. And of course he's staked within seconds. That's not funny. It's not clever. And it's not progressive. This episode just goes nowhere. There's no reason for it to exist. It's not even a good war story. And this is, unfortunately, one of those episodes where it seems like everybody's kind of phoning it in. Even David Boreanaz kind of seems to be sleepwalking. The rest of the characters don't get much time to actually do anything, aside from Spike, who's mainly in the flashback, but it seemed like Angel was kind of just asleep for most of the episode. Very little he did ever made any sense, and so much of it was because the script said so. Lawson was a terrible character to revolve an episode around, and part of that is his painful naivete. Also, there were a number of historical inaccuracies in it that made me feel very uncomfortable and may not have the same effect on everybody, because not everybody knows the real story about World War II and that historical period. I had to research it for a story I was writing, so I know a lot of details about it that many people were never taught in schools. And it's true, a lot of the versions taught in schools are sanitized for the particular country that's teaching them. True facts. This didn't have to be a bad episode, and it could have been a lot better. It could have been a claustrophobic, kind of terrifying episode, or an interesting, gripping character study of a flashback, like the episode from Season 2 was, and did a very successful job at portraying that. The difference is, the Season 2 episode had much better writing and acting, and actually had a reason to exist. It was introducing us to the new setting of the Hyperion Hotel, which was where Angel Investigations was going to relocate to. This episode was not intent on introducing another character that would go on to be an important character. It was just a one-shot character that wasn't acted particularly well and came off as extremely obnoxious. Things felt far too contrived, and because of that, the episode doesn't really work. The flashback isn't even fun, and even though Spike has a few fun bits in it, nobody is acting logically how they should be at the time, and as a result, it ends up being very awkward and artificial. Couple that with the previously mentioned taking agency from characters, and Angel being a giant asshole in the episode, and it's just a real shame. I still just can't get over the fact that Sam Lawson's big plan was to put Angel's friends on wheelie chairs with nooses around their necks. Like, he thought that Angel staking him would prevent him from saving them in time. He didn't even have, like, some sort of neat gadgetry set up, you know, like if he didn't come back in 5 minutes to stop it, it was going to pushed the chairs over and then they die. No, they're just standing there in wheelie chairs. He's not the most formidable foe that Angel has ever faced. Unfortunately, however, Nostroyev and the Prince of Lies were way more interesting. They shouldn't have been gotten rid of so easily. They were more interesting, better acted, and more charismatic. It didn't make any sense either, in terms of narrative, for him to stake either of them. And especially if he was trying to pretend to be Angelus, since Spike presumed that about him. I know they constantly try and make Spike the butt of jokes in this season, but I'm reasonably certain that Spike probably could have taken Angel at that point. He really needed to sell Spike on the fact that he was still Angelus and not just Angel, but he never did that. Spike's antics were amusing, but as with the rest of the season, Spike's antics can't carry bad stories. One person doing a good job cannot make an episode redeemable that is otherwise wretched, and this episode is wretched. So in your watch through of Season 5, please don't watch Why We Fight. It's so bad. If I could think of some clever wordplay that's slightly insulting, like Why We Fought or something, I would probably retitle this episode that. The premise is ridiculous. The attempt at making it a period piece is insulting. The character we're supposed to give a shit about is one of the most obnoxious characters that's ever appeared on the show. Angel is by turns an asshole or sleepwalking. Spike does a good job but gets made the butt of too many jokes, and nobody else basically does anything or barely even appears in it. The big plans are stupid, the story is lacking, and just when we're about to find something out, Angel stupidly stakes his allies. This is a mess of an episode, and it's not even a hot mess, it's just a mess. This is just garbage. You miss nothing if you miss this episode, and on the whole, you're better off going to Smile Time no matter what the previous episode you watched was. Because for its problems, Smile Time is 10 billion times the episode this one is. We didn't need more Buffy baggage, especially not the Initiative, and especially not in the 1940s, written by someone who didn't know the 1940s, and refuses to acknowledge even the things introduced in his own episode. Good riddance to this one. I put it off long enough because I hated it, and upon review, it really is as bad as it looked the first time I watched it. But I'll be back next time with another episode. You're welcome. Bye.